Yeah, it is Friday, 1-ish in the afternoon, and I just checked my adoption case, which if you've seen any of my other videos, I've talked about. I've been trying to adopt my grandson since 2016. Well, actually, all my grandchildren, and they were adopted, and the adoptive family. Well, first they overpassed me over, even though I had a petition in the court, approved home studies, but they overpassed me because they could, because it's corrupt. It's a corrupt system. The whole family courts, Florida courts especially, are very corrupt. There's a few states that are super corrupt. And I've talked about it, and I'll talk about it more, and I will talk about um, separate parts of the case and break it down and how they're able to get away with it because the appellate courts don't do anything about it. Yeah, they might find in favor of families from time to time, but it's such a small amount in the whole scheme of cases and DCF debauchery that it's just a little they throw little pittances, just like DCF will give kids back to some families, and a lot of people say it's they keep the ones that are adoptable and give back the ones that they can't adopt out. So, in my experience, anytime I've sued, it's always come with like a PCA through the appellate courts, which is a per curiam affirmed, which just means we agree with the judge, but they don't say why they agree with the judge, even though the judge doesn't go by the laws, even though the judge doesn't go by the judicial laws they've made, right? That set precedent. And if the judge ignores that and the appellate court says, well, we ruled this way, but we're still going to agree with the judge. Although we ruled against another judge in a similar situation, but and then I know I'm public enemy number one probably with DCF because I fight it and I just don't take their crap. Nor should any of you. And if you need to learn how to fight, there's plenty of sites on DCF. A lot of them have lawyers that are part of the groups that will tell you how to fight or will take your case. And if you can't afford a lawyer, then do your research. And if you still can't do that, then I suggest you find ways to make money because you are not, chances are, if they've moved from reunification to adoption, you're not going to get those kids. Your rights will be terminated almost 100%. There's like not any question about it. So I'm going to talk about the case, how I'm going to have to proceed. Just going to kind of reaffirm it, and then I want to talk about a show that my husband and I stumbled on. I believe it's Apple TV, and it's called, I want to say, Margo Has Money Troubles, or um something to that effect. Let's see. Margo Got Money Troubles. It stars one of the Fanning girls, Michelle Pfeiffer, Nick Offerman, a few other people. I can't remember the actress names, but she was in, I want to say Bad Sisters, which I think was also on Apple TV. But I'm going to talk about that show because it does deal with DCF, CPS, and I'm not sure it's in California what they're called. California is one of the worst states when it comes to DCF among Florida and Texas. There are other bad states too, but some are just really atrocious in what they do and what the state allows them to get away with. Because let's not make many mistakes about this. The state profits from this. The state does. And who runs the state and brags about job creation and finances for the state is the governor. So governors are behind this too. So we really have to watch with whom we vote for because DCF does not discriminate. They need children. It's a product. So I'll talk about that show, but there are spoilers. So if you haven't seen the show, maybe once I'll talk about the premise and then I'll get into the last couple episodes, which I really want to talk about it because it does involve family court and it involves CPS. So um I just really think it's important um that we talk about the, not necessarily the CPS thing, but the family court issue, which I found I really liked it. So because most of our judges are junk, and should judges have immunity is another very important question. Should they have immunity even in like a 1983 case because it says all persons, not not all persons but a judge, because a judge can be part of that conspiracy to violate your rights, right? And generally it is a conspiracy because it's more than one actor. Two or more actors is a conspiracy. And a lot of times it's a criminal conspiracy, but our DOJ and FBI just like looks the other way. Like they're not here for us. What are they here for? Right? Are they just here to do Trump and all the president's bidding? Is that what the Supreme Court is here for? Is just to do with all the political infighting and don't let the real cases that matter to the real people through? Because they don't. Because I've had a very good case in the Supreme Court and they, did not take it up. I mean, they have that right, but it's still bull. Okay. So, on my case, I've been fighting to adopt my grandson. DCF came to me 2 years ago, dangling. Oh, by the way, he's been in a group home for a while, and he's been in a group home for a while. I don't even know how long because he was given back to us because the adopted mother and father could not handle his behavioral issues. Now, here's the thing. Because children will have behavior issues whether or not they've been through the foster care and adoption child trafficking scheme. So, some are just your natural children and they have mental health issues. Here's the question I have is if especially an adoptive parent hands over a child back, like not like just take my child and put them in a facility and pay for it and you have your say until he's somewhat well or she, but I don't want to lose my rights, but I just cannot handle this child. I mean, there's chins and stuff like that for children in need of services. That's what it's called. And there are children in need of services. Let's not, negate that. There are children, whether it's educational or behavioral, there are children in our society that's in need of services, and they should get them. And we shouldn't have to fight it. We should have in our society and our nation a very robust mental health system. We don't. But that's another cross we have to bear in society. But if a parent can't handle, especially an adoptive parent can't handle a child with behavior issues, and you know a child's going to have behavioral issues if they went through foster care. If they were ripped from their parents, they're going to have behavioral issues. That's it. Whatever, no matter what their home life was, whether it was good, bad, or otherwise, you're going to have children with behavioral issues. But if a parent can't handle a child and gives it back, why are you letting them have other children? He was the oldest. There's three others that are going to grow up. Are you just going to let, these adoptive parents get the children while they're cute and cuddly and, easier to maintain behavior wise because you're pushing them in a stroller, you're putting them in a car seat, you're putting them in a play yard or whatever, crib. But once they start having behaviors and they get older, you know, the answer is just they're not cute and fun anymore. Let me give them back to you, DCF. I've banked money for them, and then just give me some more foster kids. I'll take the little ones, and then we'll just throw the older ones into a group home. You have that. I don't know the name of the family. They had adopted I guess what it turned out to be an autistic child from China, and they made all kinds of YouTube videos about him. And then when it didn't get to be fun anymore, they gave him to another family. That should be illegal, especially since there's almost zero oversight with rehoming children third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, however much it may take. So if a parent can't take care of one, why are we allowing them to take care of many? And this woman is also a foster mother. I don't know how many children she's adopted or whatever. It's an income for them. Especially special needs children. But when you sit there and say, well, I can give this child back that I adopted back to DCF and just take it another foster care and replace that income, because that's what it's all about. It's about the income. Because if you really wanted to foster care, you'd take one or two children and you'd give them all the time and love they need. You wouldn't take 7, 8, 12 kids, would you? Give me a baker's dozen. Everyone loves a baker's dozen, right? I only have a 3-bedroom. I'll hold them up wherever best way I can. Come on. Come on. There's no common sense when it comes to CPS because it's not do as I do, it's do as I say. You know what I mean? We normally would, bemoan a single mother that's got 6 kids saying, well, you don't have enough time and space for them, even though you're sleeping in your living room so your kids have a bedroom. But, oh, it's a foster parent. Well, they're our special golden child, so we'll just allow everything. We'll throw all the rules out, even if the rules say they cannot share a room if they're not biologically related. They can't share a room if they're over the age of 1. And all that stuff. They'll disallow real parents to do that stuff that they allow foster care parents to do. We have to really just sit there and say enough's enough. We're done with this crap. We're just done with it. But we just take it. And why? Yeah, lawyers are expensive. They're ridiculously expensive. Just ridiculous. It's mostly get it for greed. And for some reason, if you yell, I want to be a big law lawyer, oh, they'll snatch you up. But if you say, I want to fight for kids, they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we'll put you on the wait list or we'll just straight out reject you because we want to put you in big law. And that's just wrong. Our whole judiciary is turned to crap. And we have to reevaluate judicial immunity, the history of it, and how it is today. because it allows corruption of uh mass amounts. That's not the word I want to use, but it allows that corruption, and no one does anything. Do you think the judicial oversight for judges does a damn thing? They don't. They don't. Just like the ABA, bar associations for every state, barely does anything. It's just like DCF. You can lie your ass off in court, and that's fine. But if you lie about going to do a home visit, oh gosh, then it's to jail you go. Why is it that's the only crime that they can do that you enforce? It's ridiculous. They're mandated reporters. They don't report shit, especially with their golden foster parents. The ones that they'll call on a dime and say, "Here, I know you've got 6 kids. Can you take 6 more?" And they'll say, "Oh yes, yes. I need to buy a car or something." It's a joke. It's a joke. And in our day and age and in our nation, we shouldn't have this. So I've been fighting for my grandson since 2016. He was put in a bad placement with an abusive family that was related to some of the children, not all of them. She enabled her son to abuse my grandchildren. She's a master manipulator. She also worked in the same county that they were taken from. She had connections with their contractors. So she was able to get the kids. And I've talked about this before. You can watch my other videos if you want to hear more of the details. But I told them from the beginning, because her son's been in and out of jail, but it's been for smaller offenses, and it's been, maybe a year here, a year there. Well, she wanted the 2 babies that was his biologically. She didn't want all 4 to begin with. Because she wanted to procure them from when he got out of jail. We told DCF, like the year later, that my husband and I literally sat across the street because she lived right across the street from a city park. And then we sat in the parking lot and we watched him come in and out of her house and her yard and be at the park with the kids. And we found on her property, not only did they have an RV, but they had a brand new shed that you could see a refrigerator, like apartment size refrigerator through the window. It wasn't like all like cluttered up. It was, you could kind of see in and see a refrigerator there, not like piles and piles of boxes and a refrigerator. No, it was just like a refrigerator. The windows were too high to see, like, if there were couches and beds and stuff in there. But it was also, we could see it was hooked up to electricity. Some people need electricity for sheds and stuff like that. But her son was homeless. She was taking him back and forth to court hearings. So don't tell me that he was having nothing to do with the kids. And when we brought it up in court that they were allowing this, well, to be honest, we never really checked in the RV or in the shed to see if he was living there. He was living there. And he's violent and he's dangerous. But that's okay. And as a matter of fact, she got the kids in 2019. In July of 2019, she had them since 2016. July of 2019, she had moved to Texas before that, and DCF allowed that and lied to us about it. Well, we found it all. We figured it all out. We did our research and we drove there. In July of 2019, he was sentenced to 7 years. That's the same month She gave them back to DCF after having them for about 3 years. Oh, I want to adopt them. I want to adopt them because they're all related. These two are related to these two, are related to these two, all half siblings, are related to these two, which are the ones I'm always taking care of by another mother, by his former wife. They had 2 children. So we want to keep all of them together. But shortly after, Hurricane Michael tore through their area, and mommy, ex-wife with the 2, moved to Tennessee. She moved to Texas with the other 4, and then shortly after gave them back because Sonny Boy was going back for 7 years, and I ain't keeping these kids for 7 years. I did it for 3 years, but now he isn't coming home for me to hand them over once I adopt them. Uh, so then they were given back into a different county in Florida. They were sent back to Florida, reopened a case in a different county, and never once contacted me and said, well, she doesn't want them. And the main reason we said you can't have them is because they all bonded with her. No, no, they never called me. None of them ever contacted me, even though I had a petition to adopt. None of them contacted me, even though my daughter signed over her children to my adoption entity. So I got a call 2024 around March. Your grandson's been in a group home for a while, and we're trying to find family that want to take him. Well, yeah, I want to take him. I've been wanting him and to adopt him since 2016. I don't want to say take him. I want to love him. I want to do everything for him. I don't want to treat him like he's a commodity. I want to treat him like the grandson that I've loved since he was born. They were all jumping for joy. Oh, yay, we're so glad we found his grandparent. Found a family member that would like to adopt him. And then they started pulling their crap. I guess they probably found out that I don't take their lies and manipulation and I fight and I say in court, no, you're liars, you're falsifying records, you judge your joke. And if you watch my videos, you'll figure out and find out how 2 judges were involved in the dependency case, and they both did everything they could so my daughter couldn't appeal the case. And this is what's being done to me now. I was not given the court information, so I said, you know what? I complained to the head of DCF, heard nothing. So you know what? I'm going to just put in a petition, to adopt with an ex parte, hearing. You know what? These people aren't taking care of my grandson. The law says he's supposed to be adopted before anything else, before he sits and languishes in a group home. Hold on. One. I don't know why it is when I come in here, my nose starts to run. Sorry, people. It's really running and it's distracting. Okay. So, I put in to adopt him and I said, look, I even said to the court and a motion, let's do an ex parte hearing. DCF is allowed to do ex parte hearings. Why can't I? Because they're not only abusing our federal funds, but they're abusing my grandson. So what did they do? They closed the case, merged it with the dependency case, although they're not supposed to. You can do a private adoption. And when I found out it was closed, I called the clerk and I said, why is this closed? She said, oh, they merged it with the dependency case, but they mailed you in June. And I was almost the end of July here. But in June, they mailed me. No, they didn't. I still haven't gotten it through the portal through email, which is how they said they were going to send me court docs, through the email or mail. I haven't received it anyway, and I'm not going to because they just want it to roll right out past the tolling time of appealing it, which I'm going to just have to appeal it. I did put in for a rehearing or slash reconsideration, depending, however you want to call it. And I put in statutory case law. Guess what? They're just gonna ignore it. I know they are. And I'll appeal it. I'll spend another $400, $500, $600 for that filing fee, and I will run bets here that within a couple of months I get a PCA, which is per curiam affirmed, which just means we agree with the judge. We won't say why we agree. Why? Because they know the judge is wrong, but they're gonna let it go because, well, they all know me, they all hate me, and they don't seem to think I have rights. And if I get a PCA, I'm gonna start throwing out demand letters for this case because this is a new whole case of violating my rights. Did I get due process? No, I did not. I'm supposed to get a order from the judge saying I'm closing this case and rolling it into dependency. You took my $400, but you're not going to send me any court documents on my case? I see you by your real name. So I'm just going to start running the gamut, and I'm done with the corrupt appellate courts. There will be a signed judge, and I will send him a demand letter, and I will take him through this conspiracy. I will do it in time. I will start sending them out this weekend. That gives me 180 days, 6 months. So that means in January, and I will have plenty of time. In January, I will start filing a new 1983. It gets a whole new slew of actors. Well, I'll sprinkle in a couple of the other ones. You know who you are. Because they started the conspiracy. And they're part of the conspiracy. But I can't conclude all the other ones from Bay County. I have to do the ones from Leon County. So, yeah, so that's where I'm at. Still, the case is not opened. It's been 2 weeks. I will give them till Monday, close of day. And if not, out goes my notice of appeal. And if the appellate court says, oh, it's too late for this, I don't think so. I was never given a notice. I don't know what the date is. I put in this. You're going to hear me. You're not going to. And I'll put it in front of everyone, and then I'll take it to the Supreme Court. I'm not playing these games with these people. I'm just not. I'm not. But the thing is I will bring documents. I will show you the case laws. I will decipher the case laws, read them to you all to see how they are so corrupt. And if you think it's just in the state of Florida, oh no, my friend, it's all of them. It's all of them. They take tactics that other states use and other courts use, and they all just start running with the same tactics. See, but they keep using this all of their plays on me. So now that I've got not just one way they violated my rights, I have like 50 ways they violated my rights. So tell me that's not a conspiracy, federal court. Oh, what? The federal court in Florida is just as corrupt as every other floor? Because they're all corrupt? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So I will keep you all updated on that case. I'll keep you updated on my 1983, which is kind of in limbo. I don't know. I still haven't done my brief for that. All right. So I'm going to talk about Margo's got, what did I say it was called? Margo's got money troubles. It's a comedy drama. Elle Fanning, Michelle Pfeiffer, Nick Offerman, her really good friend Susie, Nicole Kidman's in it a little bit. Marsha Gay Harden is in it. And then I don't know the guy's name, but back in the day, he was a kid in the movie Sky High. So I remember him from Sky High. I think Kurt Russell was in that movie. But anyhow, but speaking of Kurt Russell, my husband and I just him finished watching him and his son in Monarch, which my husband loves that stuff. I watched stuff with him. It wasn't bad. Just not my thing. And then the Margot's got money troubles. It's a little racy, but I think it's a little more racing than I would like. It has some nudity, a little more than I would like. But what the premise is Margo is I believe, a community college student, and she's a writer. And she, kind of gets flattered by her professor, and then they start having an affair. He's married with a couple of kiddos, and he's married with a couple of kiddos, and they have an affair. She gets pregnant. He keeps it from his family. He actually kind of starts ghosting her. Her father is Nick Offerman, who plays a drug addicted, due to injuries from being a former, I think it's a professional wrestler called Jinx, I think. And her mother is Michelle Pfeiffer, the lovely, my favorite actress ever, ever, ever. I've always loved Michelle Pfeiffer. I've always loved things she's done. And this is kind of a different role. And I don't know if her husband wrote it for her because her husband is part of the show, which who doesn't love David E. Kelly? I mean, I grew up when my kids were little watching Ally McBeal. Loved it. Got my husband into it a few years ago. But anyways, Nicole Kidman is a former wrestler turned, well, I don't know if she's directly a family court lawyer, but she becomes a lawyer for Margo. Margo has her little beautiful baby boy and calls him Bodie. And like I said, the boyfriend ghosts her. She tries to get a job. Her mother is not very mothering him. She did raise Margo, but she just doesn't bond well with Bodie. And but Jinx comes back in her life after being MIA for about a year, which turned out what he was in rehab. He got addicted to pain medication due to all the problems with that he suffered from wrestling. I used to watch wrestling when I was a kid, but I don't really so much anymore. Um, Nevertheless, she gets a job. She gets fired from a job. Um, and her boss was Laura Santacomo, which I love her too. So Jinx comes back, and a couple of roommates move out. Jinx ends up moving in Margo, and her last roommate that's still standing is Susie, who actually happens to like love Jinx the wrestler and is not aware that Jinx is Margo's father, her roommate. That's kind of cute. That's kind of a cute twist. Having getting fired, not being able to afford daycare, her mother is engaged to a reverend, even though she's like a former Hooters uh waitress, which they kind of, I guess, people who have money would consider them trashy. Um and it's referred to in the show a little bit that she is. But she now works, I think, as a manager of some department in Bloomingdale's or something like that. So part of the show had, her relationship with Kenny, the youth minister, who's completely her opposite. But Margo needs money. And somehow she falls upon OnlyFans and does a little nudity for it. Um, but then eventually the college professor's wife finds out, or tells her. But before that happens, mean old mommy bear gets involved and she's pretty atrocious. But and this is where spoilers are going to come out. Okay, so spoiler time. You haven't seen the show. If you haven't watched like the last couple episodes, whatever, then this is the time to sign off. Anyways, okay, so the professor, and I want to say his name is Mark, and I probably should know because I have very close relatives named Mark. Um, so his mom convinces him when they start finding out, she's OnlyFans. Some people figure out who this persona is she has on OnlyFans, which she calls the Hungry Ghost, I think, like that. The Hungry Ghost, right? And she's like this alien, this like dumb alien that comes to Earth. And she gets found out and they dox her. And this upsets, I want to say, Mark the professor. And, he goes running to mommy. His wife has left him. And so they decide that she cannot be, um, morally sound for Bodhi. Now, mind you, Bodhi's, you know, out of infant phase and nearing toddler phase, maybe like a year old or close to it. And he's had nothing to do with her. He hasn't paid her any child support or anything like that. If you watch the show, mommy threw in a trust fund for the baby, but there were stipulations like an NDA and not only an NDA, but she couldn't go back to the school and stuff like that. So she's really kind of stuck with how do I support my child? And for a lot of people, content creation is a job that they do so they can stay home with their children. Um there, shows some issues of Jinx getting involved in bad ways and ODing and stuff like that. But they do a couple mediations, and Mark's just not budging. He wants sole custody of this child he wanted nothing to do with for like a year. And Margot's like, no, I'm not giving you my baby. He wants sole custody. Sole custody. And mommy's fully backing that and financially. And this is one thing that really pisses me off. And I think they kind of make it a little bit clear, but not fully clear in this show. But she's forced to do like meet with a psychiatrist and sort of like a neuropsychological testing. Uh which gladly she was deemed fit. I do like the happy endings in this case. But we know this is make believe. Parents are the only people who have to go through any kind of psychological testing, sit with psychiatrists, so psychologists. I've never heard of a foster care worker having to or a DCF worker having to. If anyone knows any different, if anyone's a foster care worker or something that's had to do that, show me the receipts and I'll believe you. But I've been like advocating this for 30 years and I've never heard of it or seen it or adopted parents, anything like that. A home study is completely different than a neuropsychological exam. Why do only the parents have to do it to get their kids back? Why don't the foster parents have to do to watch these kids? Why don't DCF workers? DCF workers are also de facto parents in some situations. Why don't these people, and they're making decisions, why are you allowing these investigators and case managers to have nothing better than a high school diploma? It's pathetic. Pathetic. You're getting enough money from federal funds. You're just sticking it in different coffers than where it's really supposed to go. There's a couple things. The day after, there's a situation where Jinx ODs in a bathtub, and DCF is called, and they show up the next day. But before DCF is called, Margo has a talk with her roommate and stuff, and they just determine that as much as she loves her father, he can't live there. She cannot have an addict watching her baby anymore, helping with her baby anymore, or anything. So he's actively moving out when DCF shows up. I mean, he's actually actively moving out. And they force all of them to do urine tests. All of them. All of them. There's no this is about OnlyFans. There's no accusation that the roommate's doing drugs. There's no accusation that the mother's doing drugs. The only accusation is the father who's moved out. He's now living in the mother's apartment while she's living with Kenny, which is her new husband. They got married. They all went to Vegas, got married, blah, blah, blah. This is a spoiler, so. What I want to say, I'm appalled at DCF telling all family members or all household members have to take drug tests. I'm appalled by that. That's a violation of your rights. It is a violation of your rights. And the courts need to do more about that. But Jinx is moved out. Then fine, then say, listen, show me where you're living now and prove it. We'll follow you. Another thing that really super ticks me off um, is the fact that she knows they're informed, the DCF worker is informed that there is a current custody case with the father and that she has a lawyer, but the lawyer was not picking up the phone. If there is a lawyer involved with that child, DCF needs to come back when that lawyer is present. Right? No, because people don't know what not to say, what not to do when DCF comes knocking at the door. And then they sit there and say, well, if you don't let us see your baby right now, and blah, blah, and look at your house, and blah, 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 we are taking him with us tonight. But I have a lawyer, or I can get a lawyer. Can you come back when there is a lawyer? We're a government agency and we have all the rights we want to do. We still have rights, and they can't be violated, right? They don't care. All right. DCF, I think, dropped the case. I don't know, whatever happened. Maybe they figured out it was a custody case or whatever. So this is what I really loved about the show is the hearing. Mediation didn't work, so it went to hearing, and it went really pretty quick to hearing. And I mean, I'm not saying necessarily what the judge did was proper. I mean, I kind of liked it. He came out, he stepped up to each person. What are you doing? What do you want for this baby? Um, okay, mommy, I want you to give the baby to grandmother. Now, dad. When the mother gave the baby to the father, he cried. Not with anyone else, but once, because he didn't know him. He didn't know him. And that's what's important, is why put a baby through trauma if you don't have to? The judge granted the mother full custody and the father 2 weeks of visit, 2 weekends a month of visitation. I loved that outcome because Margo never denied him anything to do with that child. He self-imposed isolation of that child. He did that. It goes to show you that judges could do that. Read the case. Judges don't do that. They have the little clerks do it. They give them a little points. Judges do not look over these cases or the files or the falsified documents. They don't. Nope. Can't. You cannot convince me that they do. I don't believe it. I, just graduated, as you all know, with the bachelor's in paralegal studies with a minor in pre-law. I took a lot of classes. And my last class I took before I graduated this past May, finished it up in May, was family law. And that is it was the biggest, thickest book I had to read. It's the most work I've ever had to do with any of my law classes, most of the reading. Courts are supposed to want friendly parents. Parents that want everyone to get along. Parents, grandparents, all as a loving support for the child. They want, now they're supposed to want all that, but now we know family courts and all that, they also get federal funds. So they make it the most adversarial as possible. And there's a lot of critics of that, of how adversarial family court has become and allowed to be, and how some think, the family court system should be, broken apart into different aspects of it. I'll look more into it once I'm in law school and become a lawyer and all of that. Because I will practice family law, because family law custody is so intertwined with DCF. Because sometimes DCF is called in these cases, especially if they're divorcing and there's domestic violence, and DCF is called. But also, taking children away from their parents and giving to DCF is a custodial change, just like going from mother to father, right? If you disagree, just feel free to tell me. I gotta wrap this up because I'm over 45 minutes and I wanted to make this quick. Oh, my life is crazy. My life has been such a crazy soap opera that no one ever would want to live. Maybe if you ever watch me and catch up and listen and stuff, you'll see that. It's been crazy. So crazy. But anyhow, watch that show, especially if you want like watching a good custodial outcome. If you stayed the whole time, you haven't watched it, but you stayed to watch it, just forget that I told you what happens in the end. But I just really loved the judge. The judge comes out not quite like a bull in a china shop, but he's like animated. He's like, I read these files. He was not happy with that father. He called him out. He put him to task. He did. Okay, catch the show. Don't. It's up to you. But if you're a judge, take some notes, especially if you're a corrupt judge. Just know that people are fighting to get judicial immunity gone. And if we keep throwing lawsuits after lawsuits through the federal courts in 1983 and we include judges in them, yeah, they'll probably say you can't sue a judge. But if they see it enough, Let's get Congress to like show them the courts, show them how judges literally do not give you filings and orders. I literally put in this case 2 weeks ago. I e-filed it, so they woke up Monday morning with it, and I stated in that I never got the order. Do you think I got it yet? Do you think the judge said, give her that order? Clerk, give her that order. No, because he's siding with CPS. CPS is going to be like, 10 toes down. She's not getting this child, although the law says if there's a family member who can take this child, get him out of foster care, get him out of group homes. It's just a mean girl's game. They hate me because I call them liars. Have a good day. I will try and get some files up and show you some stuff. Uh Leave me messages. I really, really want to talk to you people about stuff. Thanks so much for coming. And if you know anyone who's suffering with their kids in foster care, please show them my site. Have them ask questions. I've been doing this for 30 years, not just fighting for my grandchildren, because I've only been fighting for my grandchildren for about 10 years. But I've been fighting for other children too and helping people, telling them where to go, what to do. There is hope. We just have to call out their lies. And some of us have to save up some money to file in 1983. You can look at what I've typed up. You can look what other people's typed up. It's in Pacer. All right. Have a good one. Have a great weekend, people. And I'll pray for my grandson. And if you can too, I appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Bye.